The next law I want to talk to you about is the law of awareness. And the law of awareness just basically says you must know yourself to grow yourself. And underneath that law, I wrote these words in my notes that I want to pass on to you as we begin this session. No one can produce great things who is not thoroughly sincere in dealing with himself or with herself. It is impossible for you and I to grow if we don't seriously deal with our issues. And to deal with our issues, we have to be aware of them. And the more aware of them that we are, and the more willing we're able to deal with them, the more that we grow, and the more that we are unaware, the less that we can grow. So, this is a law about being aware of yourself and then realistically dealing with yourself, okay? When I think of reality, what Max Dupree said, the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. This is one of my favorite little laminated cards. Let me just hang with me just for a minute. This is fun. A woman accompanied her husband to the doctor's office, and after the checkup, the doctor told his wife secretly, "If you don't do the following, your husband will surely die. I want each morning for you to fix him a healthy breakfast and send him off to work in a real good mood. At lunchtime, I want you to make him a warm, nutritious meal and put him in a good frame of mind as he goes back to work, and for dinner, fix an especially nice meal, and don't burden him with any household chores. Satisfy his every whim." On the way home, the husband asked his wife what the doctor said to her. She looked at him and said, "You're going to die." It's over, baby. It's absolutely over. Several years ago, I wrote a book called Put Your Dream to the Test. And really it was one of my favorite books I've ever written because it's really kind of helping people who have dreams to kind of ask themselves 10 questions to see if they have a dream that has potential of them reaching. And one of the chapters, one of the 10 areas I talk about in that Put Your Dream to the Test was reality. And I said that if you have a dream that you're going to reach, reality has to be the foundation of that dream. And so you've got to be able to stand on something that is solid. And if you have a firm, solid foundation, you can really grow and you can build the dream. If you don't have a firm, solid foundation, you just can't build any kind of a big dream. And reality requires awareness. If you're realistic, you're aware. I've never known an unaware person that had realism in their life. And so awareness is, I got to know who I am, and then I got to be realistic about how I'm going to really deal with this issue. When I was young and was counseling a lot, one of the main observations I had in counseling people is that most people are not realistic about themselves. They don't even see themselves in a realistic way. And I can remember, you talk about awareness and what awareness will do for you. I can remember as a young pastor, real small church, and there were 10 large churches in America. And I wanted to see them, and I wanted to talk to them, and I wanted to have an audience with those pastors of those great churches to ask them questions. I mean, I had a little dinky little country church. And so I can remember I didn't get to all 10 of them. It's another story, but I only got to 2 of them in the beginning. And I offered to pay them $100 to get to them and ask them questions for 30 minutes. And the thing that was amazing about, here I am, I'm a young pastor, and those two guys, they helped me so much. That they said, if you're going to build a great church, you don't want to be a shepherd, you want to be a rancher. And all of a sudden I thought, oh my gosh, I've been shepherding. I've been, kissing all the babies, and wow, I need to learn how to ranch instead of shepherd. And then he said, you want to stop counseling and you want to start equipping. They said, when you counsel with people, you work on their weaknesses. When you equip people, you work on the strengths. I said, oh my gosh. Now, let me just say this. I'm 24. And all of a sudden, awareness began to fill my life. And I went back to those congregations, and awareness just let me see the picture, let me see myself, let me see what I was doing wrong, let me realistically kind of deal with the fact that I was counseling, not equipping, I was shepherding, not ranching. And immediately within 3 months, everything began to turn around in my life. Just because of awareness. And because I was able to realistically kind of see myself. And so let's talk about what I would call awareness questions. There are some questions that you need to ask yourself that'll just kind of help you get on track and get to be where you want to be. And so let me give them to you quickly. Number one is the first question is, do you like what you're doing now? If we're going to really grow and be aware of where we are, we just got to ask, do you like what you're doing now? Because what I have discovered is there's a whole bunch of people, they don't like what they're doing now. In fact, I'll have people come to me and say, John, I just don't like my job, and it's hard to get to work, and it's a grind, and what do you think I ought to do? Well, I just look at them and say, well, that's so simple. Quit. And as soon as I tell them to quit, they go, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, what's difficult about the word quit? Quit means stop. Hello? If this word's a little complicated for you, I don't know if we can go on. Now, see, what's interesting is they don't like what they're doing. But when somebody says well, then quit, that just is so unnerving to them. Are you with me? And that's when I realized that most people are more comfortable with old problems than they are with new solutions. And so most people, they're not wanting new solutions. They just want you to kind of kumbaya them while they have their old problems. It's the old saying, you've heard it, if I always do what I've always done, guess what? I always get what I've always gotten. And it's that whole definition of insanity. And so if we're going to be aware of ourselves, first thing we got to do is, do I like what I'm doing? Do I like what I'm doing now? I can remember very well on a plane flying back to San Diego when I pastored out there. But I was doing a lot of conferences, doing a lot of speaking, doing a lot of writing, that whole process. And I can remember on a Saturday afternoon flying back to San Diego and resenting that the next morning I had to speak. And as soon as I sensed that in my spirit, I don't want to do this. I've got to go back. I've got to go speak. My gosh, I wish I could kind of keep doing what I'm doing now. I sat down with my wife that night and said, baby, I'm going to resign real soon. This isn't where my heart is. It's very difficult to be fulfilled in life when you've left your heart. And I know all kind of people, they've divorced their heart and they can't find fulfillment. So it's a very simple question. Do you like what you're doing now? And if the answer is no, quit. Now, if the answer is yes, then redouble your effort. Go for it. Go for it. Because why? If you love what you're doing, why be average in it? Go for it. But that's a huge question. Okay, question number 2, in an awareness question. The second question is, what would you like to do? So if you say, well, nah, I don't really care. Well, that's very simple. What would you like to do? If you could do anything you wanted to do, if you could be anything you wanted to be, what would you do? What would you be? Because what I've discovered is this. In fact, I was just counseling one of the pro golfers on the tour, just on the phone coming down yesterday afternoon. And we were just talking about his career and where he was and that whole process and this whole issue of where's your heart and do you like what you're doing, that whole process. And I was talking to him and I called him by name and I said, remember this, never leave something. Always go to something. You see, I watch people all the time. They leave something. They get, they're just tired. They're worn out. They don't like their job. They're frustrated. They got problems. And all of a sudden they say, I got to get out. I got to get out of here. When somebody says they got to get out of here, I want to stop them in their frustration and say, and where are you going? It's like somebody getting in their car and say, I just got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And so they're driving down, and where are you going? I have no idea. And you know what? For the first day or two, just being removed from the scene is a good feeling. And about the third day, you thought, nah, this is not going to work. There's got to be something more here. This is not working like it needs to work. See, there's a relationship between finding your passion and reaching your potential. There is a direct correlation between I have found what I love to do, I've found my passion, and I'm reaching my potential. And I've lived this. I know exactly what it's like. I'm going to give you a story here that probably will disappoint some of you, but it's just the truth. It's just when I was in high school, I was not a great student. I liked high school, but I liked high school because I could play ball and I had friends. There was a part of the school that I just thought was totally unnecessary. And I watch these kids. I watch kids taking home books at night. And I said, "What are you doing?" They said, "We're going home. Got to do homework." And I thought, "No, I don't like that. I mean, if I do homework, I can't be with my friends and can't be playing ball." Now, I also understood that you had to kind of do some work or else you might stay there forever. So I had a lot of leadership gifts, even as a kid. And so I found 4 real smart girls. And one was smart in math, one was smart in English. And so I let them join my team. and joining my team meant that they did my homework for me every day. And they were all in my classes, so they knew what the homework was. And they would do. And so during, we had study halls back then. During study halls, my responsibility was to go around the study hall to those 4 girls to make sure that they were getting my homework done. Because the reason for that, obviously, is because you got to get your homework turned in on time. And I was very determined to always get my homework turned on time. So I wanted to make sure those ladies had that homework. Everything changed when I went to college. And it changed because high school was very boring to me. But when I get to college, all of a sudden, I could now get to do what I wanted to do. And I could prepare for my calling. And I immediately started doing my homework, and I immediately started diving in, and I made the dean's list, and I did really good. And you know the reason I did good in college is because now I was doing something that was right in my purpose and my passion. And that's when I discovered, and by the way, for you that are watching this online, or you that are here, I told you that story because it's a true story, but I told you that story because if you have teenagers that aren't doing really well, if you would have seen me as a teenager, you would be greatly encouraged. You would say, "Oh, there is hope for my boy. There's hope for my girl." Because, when I say all I did was play ball and have friends, all I did was play ball and have friends. But it all changed. It all changed when I got to do what I wanted to do, when I got to get into my passion. So if you don't like what you're doing, then okay, well, what would you like to do? Now, the third question. Now, this is a deal breaker in the awareness for a lot of people, because the third question is this: can you do what you'd like to do? In other words, are you any good at it? Because I know a lot of people, they say, well, they give you this thing that they're passionate about, and that's the good news. They got a passion. The bad news is they're not any good. And is there anything worse than somebody that's passionate and bad at the same time? I see it happen all the time. If you don't believe it, just try out to American Idol. Tells you all you need to know. I mean, when they start singing and everybody's hitting the mute button, haven't you looked at that and said, "Oh my gosh, they're just belting out badness." You know, they're just belting. They're not ashamed. They're just belting it out. And I thought, "Oh my gosh!" And then you know the question I always ask: do you ask this? Every time somebody's belting out badness, I always ask the same question: where are their friends? Don't you think one friend would step into their life and say, "You can't sing. You're not any good"? Now, what I tell people is, if you're passionate about something you're not good at, don't make it a career. Make it a hobby. Nothing wrong with having a hobby that you're not good at. Make it a hobby. But don't make it a career. I had a guy on my staff, I'll never forget, in San Diego, had a guy on my staff, and he just couldn't get happy. And I just look at, I just think, man, he can't get happy. And he was just kind of like a drag. You know what I'm talking about? He just raining on your parade. And after a while, I just couldn't handle it anymore. So I said, let's go to lunch. And we got to lunch, and I said, call him Joe. That wasn't his name. Joe, I said, yeah, you're just not happy. And to be honest with you, it's contagious. And I just want you to know that we all some days, when we're done dealing with you, we have to go to therapy. And then I asked him the question. I'll never forget. I said, this is an unbelievable story. I said, I am committed to getting you somewhere where you're going to be happy. It's not here. I'm a good fire. It's not here, but where are we going to send you? To Happy Land. I said, what would make you happy? I'll never forget this. He looked at me. He was as sincere as could be. He leaned in. He said, well, there's one job if I had, I could be happy. I said, oh my gosh, okay, this is, woo, I'm going to help him. I'm going to send him there. He said, if I could be the announcer, if I could be the radio announcer for the Chicago Cubs, I'd be happy. And I just looked at him, and I thought, don't know whether to cry or laugh. To laugh would be disrespectful, so I won't laugh, although I really want to laugh. And I kind of want to cry. Because I looked at him and I said, Joe, you're going to be unhappy all your life. Because there's only one person that can be the announcer for the Chicago Cubs, and you ain't him. And odds are high you're never going to be him. And you know, you got to have something bigger than one person job that's going to make you happy. And yet I run into people all the time. And so what I'm just asking you, very simple. Okay, you're passionate about it, but can you do it? It's like me. I love golf. I would love to be a PGA golf. I mean, I would love to be on the tour. I mean, I'd love to be on the tour. Got the passion for it. Wanted to practice. Got a problem. I'm not any good. Got a problem. In fact, the guy told me, he said, John, he said, I'm watching your game. He said, you only got one problem with your game. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can handle one problem. I thought, isn't this nice? I mean, one problem and I get my golf game going. I said, what's my problem? He said, you're too close to the ball after you hit it. And I thought, oh, can't fix that problem. Can't fix that one. See, I mean, so I'd like to be a PGA golf, but that's not going to be where I'm going. Since we're just telling you what I'd like to do, I'd love to be an Irish tenor. Oh my gosh. When I hear the four tenors sing, oh, there's a problem. I'm not Irish. I've got a deep voice, so I can't do tenor. Now, I am fat. That kind of gets one of the three. Yeah. See, you got to ask yourself, not only do I want to do it, am I any good at this? Because can I tell you something? I see people every day doing something they're not good at. And I just want you to know, you can't be successful doing something that you're not good at. Giftedness trumps passion every day. And so when I see people, so by the way, I'm not going to spend a long time here, but I'm around these people that say, well, you know, Juan, if you believe it, you can achieve it. I'm telling you, just got to have belief. Got to have belief. If you believe it, you can achieve it. Talk to me for a moment. Are we going to live in Stupidville all of our life? Going around saying, well, if you believe it, you can achieve it. Woo, woo. That's one of the dumbest statements. Oh, just believe. Just come on, believe it. You can achieve it. Yeah, believe it. You can achieve it. We got to quit being stupid. I mean, we even write songs about it. I believe I can fly. You can't. My name's John. I'm your friend. You can't. No matter how long the runway. You can't. We set our people up so many times for failure by passing on a simple thing like, if you can believe it, you can achieve it. Now, I'm all for belief. And I can tell you right now, there's a lot of things you won't achieve without it. But I want to tell you, I discovered a long time ago, belief plus giftedness is a lot better than belief without giftedness. Trust me. So we've got to help people, and we've got to help ourselves. We've got to be aware of what we can do. And one of the greatest things I think a leader does sometimes is just sit down and just help people say, you know what? You're just not any good in this. I mean, I watch people that are in the people business, and they're not any good with people. What's wrong with this? If you're not any good with people and you're in the people business, it's going to be a tough ride. And there's sometimes I just want to sit down with them and say, my name's John, and I'm your friend. People don't like you. How many of you know somebody right now? Come on, talk to me. You know right now. Get those heads. You know right now. You just got to go. You just want to go tell them that. Yeah, so people don't like it. How many of you are sitting right beside that person right now? You're just sitting right beside that. How many of you brought that person here because that's their problem? Right now, you just brought them there. Wow. Question number 4. Do you know people who do what you would like to do? You see, if you know people who do what you would like to do, you've got to get to those people. It's what Jim Collins calls who luck. He says the best luck you could ever have in life is who luck. It's who you meet. And we all understand the value of that. And so if you want to do something and you're passionate about maybe learning, you got to go find that. You got to find that person that is really good at it. You follow me? And you got to get to them. And I'm right now working on a teaching a lesson, maybe even become a book. I don't know, because I'm kind of in love with it. I'm just working the idea right now. But it's called The Power of Proximity. And it's this whole concept that if you really get close to somebody that's great, you have greater potential of being great yourself. And so this is what I'm talking about right now. Who do you know? Who do you know? This is the question I teach people all the time. Who do you know that I should know? Who do you know that I should know? I've asked that question. My gosh, I've asked that question thousands of times. Who do you know that I should know? I mean, I met the first time I went to the White House to meet President Clinton was because I asked that question, who do you know that I should know? He said, well, I'm a good friend of the president. I said, okay, I'd like to meet him. Developed a relationship. That's how I met John Wooden. I had some teacher in Orlando tell me, he said, well, I know John Wooden. You ought to know him. And a month later, I was on the plane going to meet John Wooden. I mean, I've asked that question thousands of times. Who do you know that I should know? And in this whole process of this awareness and growing yourself, be aware of who you are, what you want, what you need, who you need to go see. Wow. Question number 5. Will you pay the price to do what you want to do? Wow. Now, this is the great separator of people right here. Will you pay the price? You see, almost always when we stop growing, almost always, not always, almost always, I said, almost always when people stop growing, it's a price problem. Almost always. They get to a stage in their life where they're unwilling to continue to pay that price because that's what we have to do. Failure to grow is almost always a price problem. Wow. In the Put Your Dream to the Test I talked about earlier, one of the chapters is the cost question. Am I willing to pay the price for my dream? Because what I discovered is dreams are free. It's the journey that costs you something. That's why everybody signs up. Oh my gosh, what a thing. I could do that. I could be there. I could, oh yes, sign me up. Work? You mean I'm going to have to work? Every day? Oh my gosh. That's a little high. Whew. That's why people love to sit around and talk about their dreams. You don't have to do anything. Dream's free. Journey's not. And this whole awareness, I've got to ask myself, not only what do I want, but am I willing to pay the price for this? I had a guy come up to me one day. I'll never forget. I was at a conference, middle of the afternoon, middle break. And I had been speaking to 2,000 people that had paid like $1,000 a head. So it was a good day. If you don't get that, I can't help you. And so he came up to me and said, I've been watching you. And you sit on a stool and you teach us and people take notes. He said, I just, in this last session, I determined I want to do what you do. I want to do what you do. I said, well, that's good. That's good. I said, I got a question to ask you. Would you like to do what I did so you can do what I do? Everybody wants to do what you do. They don't want to do what you did. It's the did that gets them. They got a did problem. Oh, I would have been successful, but did came my way. And oh my gosh, I had to go do something. And here's what I want you to know. When you, and I've discovered this for myself too, when we pay financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, socially, and everywhere, that's when we make the changes. People don't make changes unless it costs them something. I've watched it. I've observed it. So this awareness challenge in our life, we've just got to ask ourselves, am I willing to pay the price? And then the sixth question, wow. The sixth question is, when can you start doing what you'd like to do? When can you start this? I mean, can you start it now? I mean, when can you get going? And what I would like for you to say is this. We've already studied about mistakes and the fact that the person says, well, I don't want to start because I'm going to make mistakes. Here's what I want you to know. I want you to know that you could start. You can start now. You can start today for the best things in life that you ever want. And I know that to be true. I know that to be true. Because when I was in my 20s, I had an assistant, a secretary in my office, who for Christmas gave me a book called The Greatest Story Ever Told. And I love reading books, and when she gave me the story, The Greatest Story Ever Told, I got so excited. And then I opened it up, and all the pages were blank. And she wrote on the first page, John, your life is before you. Fill these pages with kind words, good acts, matters of your heart. Live an intentional life. Live a life of significance. And I went home that day. It's before I ever wrote a book as an author. I went home that day and I started on that first page, and the first thing I put in that book was, I want to make a difference. And I started writing about what I would like to make a difference in, and I just began to think and dream, and I wrote in that every day. I wrote in that every day. until I filled it up. It was the most important book, by the way, that I ever wrote. Never sold a copy. Never had it on the market. But the most important book I ever wrote was that book. And all Eileen Beavers did was, she said, John, you start writing now. Just start writing now. Start writing your story today. Right now, just start writing your story. In fact, I brought one because when I wrote the book Intentional Living, I said I want to give people a gift that Eileen Beavers gave me. And so, yeah, we put out a simple book called The Greatest Story Ever Told. And I talked to my publisher, I talked to my agent, talked to myself, said no royalties, let's just give it all nonprofit. Let's all give it to our transformation projects, and we've done that. But here's what, it's this greatest story ever told. Pages are blank. You see, you're either writing your story or you're reading your story. And if you read your story, it's not the story that you were created to have. The only person that can write your story is you. And once you understand that, you can start now. You can start today. You don't have to wait for another day. You don't have to wait for an ideal situation. You just need to start writing your story out. And when you write your story out, it's the story that you were created to write. Wow. I run people all the time that say, well, John, I love that, but I'm getting old, and I think I've maybe missed my first half, and I just want you to know it's okay. So I run people all the time. They'll say, well, I'm 50, and I really like to do this, but it would take me 5 years I would be 55, and it's kind of late to get started. And I look at them and say, in 5 years from now, how old are you going to be? Well, I'm going to be 55. Well, that ain't going to change. Now, the only question is, do you want to be 55 and not have your dream, or 55 and have your dream? That's the only choice you got to make. You're going to be 55. Now, the question is, what are you going to do in those 5 years to get there? I love that statement that says, though you cannot go back and make a brand new start, my friend, anyone can start from now and make a brand new end. Love it. I love it. About a month ago, I was in Paraguay, and it was a very busy time there for 3 days, and we've seen major transformation in the country. And so we were dealing with leaders of the country, Supreme Court people. And so I had a 2-hour session with the Secretary of Education. And I'll never forget, I walked into his office, and he had asked to meet me. I'd never personally met him, but he wanted to meet me. And so I walked in with a couple of my people in our team, and he shook my hand. He sat down. And his first words, I'll never forget it. He said, I have 700 days. I have 700 days to make sure that we can change the lives of high school students. 700 days. He knew his term was going to be up when the president's term was going to be up, and there was a sense of urgency about him. And he said, I've got 500,000 high school kids. I want to change their life. And I'll never forget, I've got 700 days. Now, what I want you to understand is he was totally aware. He was totally aware of his time. He was totally aware of his limitation. He was totally aware of where he was going to go. And we had a great discussion for about an hour and a half. And before it was all over, I said, we'll write the high school curriculum for you, and we'll get it ready. And 1 year from now, we'll put it in every high school, and every high school kid can get this character training stuff that's yours. We shook hands, and I walked out of there. And I said, there's a guy who's counting his days and making sure that they count. That's the law of awareness.